Well, Edward Blum is at it again. Now, off the heels of his case that he filed with students for fair admissions, get rid of affirmative action at the college admissions level, he is now attacking an Atlanta-based venture capital fund that supports black women with small businesses. Yes, he's coming after black women. This has nothing to do with college. This has nothing to do with Asians, or what we think it has nothing to do with Asians. So Edward Blum and his nonprofit American Alliance for Equal Rights filed a federal lawsuit stating that Fearless Fund Management violates the Civil Rights Act of 1866 by making black women only eligible for $20,000 grants. So black people create a fund for black women to get grants for their businesses, and he's attacking it. Now, the Blum-founded group Students for Fair Admissions brought the lawsuit, as we said earlier, with the Supreme Court. And he said this fund, it said, was started actually by the Cosby Show actress Keshia Pulliam. She's an entrepreneur. It said, and Ariane Simone and executive Ayanna Parsons back in 2019. Now they say defendants, Fearless Fund Management LLC, Fearless Fund 2 GP LLC, Fearless Fund 2 LP, and Fearless Foundation Incorporated, collectively Fearless Fund. It's a operating, it's a racially discriminatory program that blatantly violates Section 1981. It's a guarantee of race neutrality, states the lawsuit. Say the Fearless Strivers Grant Contest awards $20,000 grants to winning applicants under the program's terms. The submission of an entry forms a contract between the Fearless Fund and the applicant. They say eligibility for the program depends on the applicant's race. It said the eligibility requirement listed in the program's official rules, it is only open to black females. It said the Fearless Fund has numerous investors, including Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Costco, General Mills, and MasterCard. It said according to what's being reported, Blum plans to file more federal lawsuits to challenge race-based policies implemented by corporations, and claimed 60 white or Asian members of his group, American Alliance for Equal Rights, were excluded from the fund due to race. Oh, you dirty bastard. So what he decided to do was to get whites and Asians to apply for the fund, and they say, well, no, this fund's for black women. And then he go files a lawsuit. Boy, this is a dirty devil. Oh, he's dirty, isn't he? Now, I say the common theme is that these organizations say the challenge in the courts, the use of racial classifications and preferences in our nation's policies. This is what he said, right? So they say the 71-year-old told the New York Times that he celebrated the decision, it says, the Supreme Court by drinking wine and taking an Ambien and going to bed. See, you're a devil. You're combining wine and Ambien? Seriously? So you can't sleep because you're a devil. That's what happens. Why you need to drink wine and take an Ambien? Well, you're not living right, you ain't sleeping right. They say racial classification, they say it's a zero-sum game, that there are better ways to achieve individualized student diversity than treating students differently by race and ethnicity. As he also noted, it said that he does not believe that systemic racism exists in the United States. Of course he doesn't believe that. We know he don't believe that. I mean, why would he? He's part of the people that the oppressor class. He said, I don't believe in it. He said, what your question, he said, implies is that in the American DNA, there's racism. It was founded upon racism, and it's part of what this country is. I reject that. That's exactly what this country is. This country would be nothing without racism. If it wasn't founded on racism, why we have chattel slavery then? There wasn't a business agreement between Africans and white folk. See, these people want to reject history. They want to have revisionist history. They want to whitewash history. So the lawsuit is seeking declaratory judgment that defendants' Fearless Strivers Grant contest violates Section 1981, the temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction barring defendants from closing the fourth application period, selecting grant recipients, or enforcing their racially discriminatory eligibility criteria for the Fearless Strivers Grant. So that's his strategy, y'all. So he gets whites and Asians to apply to these different things that's for black people, and then you say, no, it's because it's for African Americans, it's for black Americans, And then he said, oh, you discriminate against the white. You discriminate because they're Asian. Remember, he said he had 60 people do it just so he can have his case. You understand what I'm saying? But let's go back to the Supreme Court decision. They called us the descendants of slaves. They also called us freedmen. And since that's the game he wants to play, fine. We can always switch it up. So you should say, this is for the descendants of slaves. This fund for the descendants of slaves. That is a lineage. That's not a race. If you are descendants of slaves, chattel slavery in America, you can have it. And we're talking about a direct descendants. Okay? Just that simple. So you cut out all the BS when you remove black and just say descendants of slaves. Freedmen or freed women. So you can say, well, the Fearless Fund, you say, helps freed women, that run small businesses. And the freedmen, freed women, comes from, the classification given to black Americans or the descendants of slaves. Don't even use the word black. That's his game. Don't use it. Just change the language. They do that all the time, white folk. Just change the language. Just say descendants of slaves and freedmen. Just like the Supreme Court decision. So when this fool try to do that, you can just reference the Supreme Court and say, hey, they called us descendants of slaves. They said we were freedmen, and that's who this grant is for. Just that simple. Isn't it great? Isn't it grand that when you can just change the language? But yes, but you know what? Like I said, I'll say it about him. May Edward Blum be cursed too. He deserves to be cursed in every which way. He can't sleep, so he already been robbed of his sleep. He's spending his last little bit of life trying to harm black folk. Now I pray that all his finances are so cursed that he can't even do anything. Because why do he need money like that? He is so much good that he can do in society. No, what he want to do with his last little life that he has left in him is try to harm black folk. That's why I say, man, the people that got money don't need it, because you can do so much good in the world. That's going to be his legacy, an anti-black white supremacist. That's it. That's all he is. But let me know what y'all think about, this guy. But the black community needs to start talking about him. Seriously. We need to really home in on him and get him on our sites, because he's been operating in the shadows for too long, and we got to change that. We got to put that spotlight on him.